Flights are pricey, planning feels chaotic, and that trip that keeps getting pushed because you're too busy or travel's too expensive. Welcome to Points, Cards, and Travel. I'm Ross, the founder of Itinerary Boss. I've made the mistakes of doing this for 10 plus years so you don't have to. Each week, you'll get practical tools, point strategies, and expert guests with real use cases so you can travel better for way less using points and miles. If you've got a few credit cards, a pile of points, or that nagging feeling that you're still not doing this right, this episode with Lauren Ross is going to be for you. She had solid cards, followed all the blogs, was booking travel regularly, but her points weren't going nearly as far as they should have. She's booking through portals, unsure where to transfer, and second guessing those decisions. And we're going to break down in this episode what changed, how her mindset shifted, and exactly how she used points to book an epic 11-day trip to Ireland and the United Kingdom with premium flights, five-star hotels at a fraction of the cost and saving over $5,000 in cash savings. So, if that sounds interesting to you, this episode is going to be a great one. Quick thing before we bring on our guest, if you're new here, go ahead and grab my free 5-step roadmap to your next free five-star luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there, which you can find in the show notes. Now, let's bring on our guest and get into it. Hey, Lauren, welcome to
Hey,
Points, Cards, and Travel.
thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm excited to have you on. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you'll see that Lauren's last name is Ross. She does happen to be my second cousin, so we're going to have some fun today. But the reason I wanted to bring her on is she's going to share just a big win that she recently had. Our goal is to make this attainable for those who may have a couple cards and are trying to figure out the best way to maximize those points. And Lauren and her boyfriend recently went to the United Kingdom and as well as Ireland using those points. And now she's super excited to continue to build off that. So excited to have her here. Lauren, yeah, give us a little bit of background. Before we had that conversation, before we worked together, like what did your credit card and points setup actually look like? And how are you booking travel at that time?
Yeah, so I've had a few different strategic cards that I've used for the last several years. So I have the Amex Platinum, the Chase Sapphire Preferred, and the Freedom Unlimited, and then the Southwest Rapid Rewards credit card and the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless card. So I was getting these credit cards for like the big intro bonuses and then really just kind of coasting off those, and trying to use them where, they make sense, right? Like a Southwest credit card, use that to book Southwest flights. Um, but then I was just booking all of my travel through the portals directly or like on Marriott's website or on Southwest's website. Um, so I wasn't really figuring out if there's a way to make my points go longer. I was just like, okay, great. I have points for these different cards for these different things. And so I was just trying to use the cards strategically, but not necessarily using the points strategically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. No, and I mean that's exactly where I started too. And I think when we sat down, you were like, "Hey, I have these, I have this stuff, like I want to do it." And that's what was exciting is, and that's why I wanted to bring you back on is making it attainable for people because a lot
Yeah.
of our clients, people who listen, are real estate investors. They are, high spending business owners. Then you have people personally who are like, "Hey, if I'm not spending a ton of money but I have daily expenses." And I like to travel and I have cards, like how do I do this? So I love that you were able to start with the welcome bonuses, get that going, and then you have that strategy. I'm curious because you're based near Raleigh.
Mhm.
Did getting the Southwest card, did you get that because it's kind of a Southwest, hub and there's good flights, or why did you get that card?
So things have changed a lot for Southwest in the last couple of years. I think COVID hit them pretty hard and they don't have as many flight options as they used to. They're going through like a whole big rebrand, but pre-COVID, there were a lot of really cheap direct flights out of RDU, just like to local, US destinations. And so, I mean, I was pretty much flying for free with the points that I was getting from that card. And, it was a lot of times you could find under $200 like cash value in points. So I was doing that for a while. And then after COVID, there haven't been quite as many Southwest flights as there used to be. But at the Raleigh airport, the Terminal 1, it's like just Southwest and I think like Breeze Airways. So really quick and easy to get in and out. I'm hoping they get their situation a little bit better handled because otherwise, yeah, Raleigh has a lot of American Airlines flights too. Haven't quite made the leap on a American Airlines credit card, but Southwest has a really, really good rewards program with their credit card, and it's a Chase credit card, so it you can transfer from your Chase card to Southwest directly. That's about the only transferring I was doing for a while is just from my Ultimate Rewards in Chase to Southwest if I needed to.
Yeah, no, that's a great you're getting free flights. So I think
Yeah.
that right that's the most important piece. I think when people get started out, they go, "Oh, I want to get the $10,000 business class seat over to Asia." I'll spoil it alert for you. It took me like 6 to 7 years to
Yeah.
of doing kind of going through exactly what Lauren was doing, traveling for work, getting those cards, doing those type of things. So getting started out and getting small wins is bigger than none. And for people who are listening. If you want to dive deeper, if you do live near a Southwest hub, we did a episode about a month ago around Southwest specifically in the Companion Pass with Max Craig. So if you go back a couple episodes, you'll be able to find that. But yeah, I think it comes down to again for people, where are you flying in and out of? That's a great strategy around RDU. If you're for us, we're American Hub, so thinking through those things and then just using that card, like you said, all your domestic flights were free
Yeah.
with that strategy, and that's where building out that home airport, what cards, those type of things are really important. And I know you are following a lot of I mean, you don't get into this, right? Unless you start reading online, right?
Yeah.
You got the points guy, you got 10X, you got a lot of amazing just companies that put out some really valuable information. And that's where I learned a ton. But it can be overwhelming because there's so much. Then you go down the rabbit hole. So I think from your standpoint, you're already doing a lot of the right things, but what still felt confusing or overwhelming for you?
Yeah, and I know I've already mentioned this too, but I think making your points go further or maximizing how you use those points. I think it was really confusing to me when I read a blog post and be like, oh, I transferred X amount of points to Axios and was able to book this Singapore Airlines flight, whatever. I was like, how are you doing this? Like, I understand conceptually that you're clearly using points, but how are you transferring points from here to here to here? How do you know how to do that? And I think I was also just confused about what really is like a good deal for anything you're not like seeing when you're booking in the portal directly. Like, how do you know that you should transfer like from your, portal to a different airline or something and knowing like what is a good deal? When is it worth it to do that? And so I think I would just read that and kind of glaze over like it was like the gamification of it. I wasn't really understanding how to do that.
If this episode's helping you out, could you hit that follow or subscribe button and also leave a quick 5-star rating wherever you're listening? Yeah, I mean, the banks make it they make it complicated, right? The different programs make it complicated because you once you realize how to do this, you're beating the system, right? You're
Yeah. Yeah.
because no one's going to say, "Hey, we're going to make this super easy." When you get 100,000, points from your card welcome bonus, you're automatically going to get 5 to 10x times that and $5 to $10,000 worth of value, right? You have to learn kind of that strategy. And I think
Right.
that's where there's so much really good information online. But I think like for you, it sounds like you were reading a lot of the blogs, right? Following those, like you said. But why do you feel like some of that free information out there just didn't translate into it and getting some of that max value?
There wasn't really, and I think I just kind of felt dumb. Like I would read, like I transferred these points to this airline or to this, alliance group or whatever, to this airline or whatever. And I was just like, well, how are you doing that? How did you know you could do that? Like I think I just didn't really like there's no breakdown of, and I know it's pretty straightforward, right? Yes, if you go into your portal, you can see who the transfer partners are, right? But sometimes it's like multi steps or and so I think I'd read some of these like articles and understand like, well, how do you I don't understand how do you know like that you can transfer from this to this to this and how it works? There's not really a breakdown of how you do it. It's just I did this. And
Yeah.
then I felt like I'm expected to figure out, well, how do I do that? Like I know like what is the next layer beneath it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's very true. I mean, it's I did this, and then there's three other partners, and you're just like, wait, does that card do this? And I think I mean, I spent a ton, like weekends, just diving into that, trying to figure it out, trial and error, using statement credits, right? Like all the mistakes that everyone makes, and then realized, oh, like it is a little bit simpler, and that's where you just have to know, right, the tools. But I mean, you'd be surprised. You said, I know you can go into the portal and you see transfer partners where you transfer those within your bank portal, but I would say 97% of people don't even realize that. I talk to people
Yeah.
all the time that are like, wait, where do I go? What do I do? So I think that's the first step is if you know you can get value from those transferable points and there actually are partners, like that's step one. And then kind of realizing who are those transfer partners? I mean, you don't need to know all, 100, right? You get overwhelmed and, you'll just say that's
Yeah.
too much. It's kind of like, again, going back to what Lauren was doing and mentioned in her strategy, she lives near a Southwest hub. That's very simple. That covers your domestic flights. If you know, hey, I'm going to, I know you all went and we'll get into this, you went to Ireland and England. Like, who are the main, airlines and transfer partners that are going to there? Because if you try to go learn all 100 and which one transfers and how to do backdoor and this and that, like, I still figure that out on a right day-to-day
Yeah.
basis. It's where's your airport? Where are you going? Who might be a good transfer partner? And planning that out well in advance. And that's kind of how you build out that card strategy of you have those Amex, you have those Chase, you have those, different points that then can make it to
Right.
the whole.
Yeah, like I think and I could be saying this backwards. Like I know United is a transfer partner for either Chase or Amex, but not both.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
Chase, yeah. So like I knew that I could book United flights using my Chase points, but like for Amex, I would want to look at Delta as, the transfer partner option for my Amex. So I think even that just knowing yeah who the different options are and it was also another thing real quick is even knowing like the different alliances. So like, I would see a transfer partner of Air Canada as an option. I'm like, okay, that's not really going to help me out much, right? But then I found out through just kind of talking with you, doing further research, like I could book a United flight through Air Canada and it would end up being a United flight. And I was like, wait, how does this even work? And so like I ended up flying United home from Ireland, but we booked it through Air Canada, which we transferred points to Air Canada from Chase. So there's just a lot of information that you just kind of have to learn that's not going to be like easily presented in front of you.
Yeah, well, hey, if you're listening to this and you're, 10 plus minutes in, like you're getting some good details, right? But exactly. I mean, like you just mentioned, Amex to Delta, that's one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of people make is, I mean, these are people who are, spending 400,000 points on first class when they could, domestic when they could be booking. I mean, there's flights from JFK to London that are 30K in business class, right?
Yeah.
Using Amex, but it's not on Delta, it's on Virgin. So it's
Hmm.
just those, right? It's knowing those little transfer partners and the kind of the workarounds. That's the biggest thing. But yeah, if you are listening, just think through it's the alliances, right? Don't try to go figure out all 100. Just think of, and we've gone through and shared these in some of our former episodes, but it's One World, Star Alliance, Sky Miles. Those are going to be some of the big ones. And then you can kind of
Yeah.
branch off through there. But no, I like that you start out with the Southwest because it makes it simple for people. Think about your home
Yeah.
airport, where you're flying out of. And that's really going to help. But I want to get into the fun part of this because you got a
Yeah.
big win. And it was cool to see you guys get to go to Ireland. You get to go do something that was really important to your boyfriend, and do a lot of it on points. So yeah, would love to hear just how do you make that happen? How do you book the flights, hotels, and how did that kind of differ from what you've done before?
Yeah, so I think, typically in the past I would have just looked on the portal and tried to like book it directly there. But you and I had a conversation. I kind of explained what we were thinking about doing. So we were planning to fly into London, stay there for like 3 nights, and then then head up to Liverpool for one night, and then fly to Ireland for a couple days in Dublin and a couple days in Galway. So at least four different hotels we were planning to stay at, and three different legs of travel. So was really just trying to figure out how can we use points to make this go as much as we can. And so I did happen to have some American points that I was able to use for my flight to London. But for Langley, we were able to transfer from Chase to, or no, the flight there, I think we paid cash for that one because we got our flights home completely covered. So from Dublin back to Raleigh, what I mentioned a minute ago, we booked those through Air Canada. So we transferred points from both of our individual Chase accounts to Air Canada, which there was a incentive to with Chase to Air Canada. So I think it was like 20% more points when you transferred it as well. And then we were able to book United like premium economy seats purely on points. And it's like, a 7 to 8 hour flight. So that was definitely clutch. Um, so we did that through Chase. And then our one of our hotels in Dublin, I hadn't really stayed at many Hyatt properties before. And so this was something you had told me about is the Chase transfer to Hyatt is usually like a really good value. And you showed me a couple tools to look at for seeing what those point options are. And so we ended up transferring again from our Chase accounts to Hyatt. And we were in like an insane, super nice room, like in the Liberties, which is like a good area of Dublin, for I think it was like 20,000 points or something like stupid low. Like it was like a really, really great deal. So that was completely covered there. And then I think
We wanted to thank you for listening in and mention if you want help applying this to your own spending and trip planning strategy, that's exactly what the Reward Strategy Lab community is for. You can find details if you want to join within our show notes. Now, back on with the show.
I think those were the major ones, but yeah, between my American points that I'd had just like, accrued through, booking flights through American, and something to keep in mind too, I guess, is with Amex, you get that 5 times points boost or whatever if you do use your card there, but you don't have to book it on like the Amex portal, right? Like you can book it on the American Airlines website directly. So that's what I always do is I'll book through, if I am paying cash, I'll book through the airline so that I'm getting the Amex points or the Chase points, but I'm also getting the points like with the airline as well. Because if you don't touch them for a while, those can add up on their own as well.
100%. Yeah, no, that's a great point because yeah, we have the Sapphire Reserve, but Platinum or Sapphire Reserve, like book it directly with the airline because if something goes wrong too, you're not dealing, I think a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm going to get, 8x or whatever that or, 5x, whatever that is through the portal." But then you're dealing with an OTA third party where if something happens, especially going abroad, like you then got to deal with you're kind of at the back of the line dealing with a travel
Yeah.
agent versus if you book that with these higher premium cards that have some of the best travel insurance, you can literally you can go find a different flight and you know that you're going to be covered with that, with a lot of that insurance. So that's a big thing it's a small thing, but just a big mistake I see a
Yeah.
lot of people make. That's awesome. And I think Hyatt that's our favorite. Like we stay everywhere. That's where our ultimate rewards go. That's where, we're getting the new built card. That's where those will go. So yeah, it's insane value. I think a lot of people when
Yeah. I had no
they,
idea.
yeah, oh yeah, Heights always stay at. Like that's where we stayed on our honeymoon, 5-star luxury. But I think people go, oh, points you stay at like, the Red Rock Inn, right? Like the where you're opening the door to, walk outside and there you are. But no, they can take you to some very nice luxury place. And I think you guys too, with your platinum, didn't you have like fine hotels and resorts or some of those
Oh,
credits and you got some like
yes.
And then you could use that to save some money on like free breakfast and all that.
Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you. So for the Amex, yeah, you get I believe it's $600 a year. I think it's 300 per every like 6 months you can get back as a statement credit when you book through their like fine hotels collection. So basically, if you were to go onto the Amex portal and you see their list of like it has a designation of a fine hotels and resorts collection, you get, I believe it's usually around like $150 just on the property for, if you want to use it at like the bar or at the spa or something like that. You get that automatically. It's usually free breakfast for two people every day. And then it's at a decent incentivized cost. And then you get that $300 back too. So I did that when we went to Portugal last year. We stayed at a five-star hotel in Porto for, I think for 3 nights, it ended up being like less than $500 total after, the perks and incentives we got back. And in London, we stayed at a four-star property for, let me see, I think I wrote down what the value was there. But it was, I can't remember the exact value, but we ended up, I think it was a similar thing where it was like 3 nights for like $600 or something like that for a four-star property. And we had free breakfast every day. And we had a spa credit that I used. So that really goes a long way too.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's the thing is if you have a lot of people go, are the annual fees worth it? And then when you start to look at those credits, like those knock down and you use those, that's how you can strategically plan your trip where
Yeah.
you guys, right? You had the Hyatt points, you had somewhere you stayed in London, and there's some times where you may have a bigger trip where you say, we're going to use some cash, some points, and that's where you can really use some of those. So that's, and it just, a couple $100 here and there with food and spa, like that's what makes vacation nice when, you're getting
Yeah.
those savings do add up. So for that 11-night trip, I guess from a cash savings perspective, do you know like off the top of your head how much you all saved?
Yeah. I think for what we did end up using points in some capacity or credit card incentives in some capacity for, it was around like a $5,000 cash value. And we paid like 1,300 total between the two of us. So about $3,700 in savings. And the trip on the whole, for things we did end up paying cash to, the savings that we had from the points was a huge boost. That when I tell people how much that trip was for 11 nights, they're like floored at how we did it. But I mean, yeah, we saved almost $4,000 just using points and credit card incentives.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is they add up. And you could go on a right? You can go on a 5-day vacation, you go on a 10-day, a 2-week, right? And those things add up and as you build on those, that's awesome. I mean, I'm glad you guys were able to save, and I know now you're pumped, right, for to get even more. But I guess now that you've kind of gone through that, it makes a little bit more sense. Like, how does your confidence now feel just with using points and making those travel decisions like change after doing that trip?
Oh yeah, like I mean, my friends, I feel like I'm definitely not an expert, but compared to some of them, I feel like they look to me for for guidance with credit card things, and like I feel like I can show even them like this is what you need to do, like transfer your points here, do this, do that, don't book through the portal directly. Um, and for Langley and I, like when we're planning trips, like I feel pretty confident that I can get us the the best deal from like a savings perspective. Like I know how to see what all of our options are and then make the best strategic decision and know that like we're not getting, fleeced and missing out on like big savings opportunities. Like I feel confident that we're making it stretch as far as we can. So it just feels good to know that when we're wanting to do something, like I can pretty confidently say like, oh, this is a X value trip. we can probably get it down to this. And then is that affordable for us to do? Yes or no? So just having the tools there to be able to like accurately budget and make sure that we're in a good position so that we can do like fun stuff that we are is going to be paid out in cash. We have a little bit more money that we can spend on those type of things because we know the travel and logistical things are largely taken care of.
Yeah. And I like what you say because a lot of times people don't think about it holistically, right? It's like, oh, we aren't going to travel, we aren't going to take that trip, but it just frees up outside of even the trip where sure, you guys saved, around 5,000 bucks cash value, that then went into, oh, cool, you know what? We want to go to this five-star restaurant and like ball out and
Yeah.
have a good dinner because we just saved so much. Like we're not gonna say, oh, do we do this? Do we do that on vacation? We're gonna enjoy it, but then also in everyday life you're not like, oh, we can't do this because we want to take this trip. It just makes it where you can live the life you still want to,
Yeah.
but then also, right, if you have that strategic plan in place with the right cards, and then you know how to get, the most value out of those, like it just, I love how you phrased it. So that's awesome for people working with someone like this, who do you think it's most helpful for? And then also like, who do you feel like this might not be just like getting into points might not be a good fit for?
I do think, you're obviously going to have a leg up if you have some sort of credit card strategy, if you have an awareness around points and credit card incentives, but you know, you can even take it a step back further than that and just use, working with you or someone like you just to even establish a strategy. Just, kind of starting at basics of like, what credit cards should I have? What makes sense? Because again, it really is just free money on the table, right? You don't have to immediately spring for the Amex that's like an almost $1,000 annual fee. The Freedom Unlimited is a free card that's literally just cash back, right? So it's obviously not going to be good for someone who is not able to like keep up with credit card payments. Like if you're in a position right now where you're having to like defer payment on some of them just to get that credit line as quick as possible, it may not be the best for you. But if you are keeping up like, and have credit cards that you're like on top of, I think just figuring out what credit cards you should have to get the most bang for your buck is step one. But then for someone like me who kind of had a bit of a strategy already of like knowing what credit cards to use when, you just were able to kind of help me take it to the next level. So I think really like whether you're just starting out or you are somewhat experienced, there's still something that you can learn. And just to help, yeah, whether for you it's just learning even how to start out or just how to make it go the furthest that it can, which was like more so the case for me.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And there's so many different, and look, I learn every day, right? There's new stuff that comes out every day. And I think that's the hardest part is people don't want this to be a second job. And as things change,
Yeah.
it's like, how do I keep up with this? Do I have to have 10 cards? How do I track all of this? And that's exactly why, I offer the services that I do and why I have this is to keep people in the loop, share stories like this. And it is, if you need to get the right foundation in place, and we have specific workshops that, people can go to where it's like, get the right credit card foundation to earn 4 to 10 times more points. And then if you're already kind of there, then there's how do you redeem for 4 to 10 times more value, right? So
Mhm.
it's really the kind of meeting people there. And then there's
Yeah.
other strategies on how to get more value when you start to get into real estate investing, being a business owner. But I think for the everyday personal spender, it's really just some of the simple things that we talked through. It's getting that in line. And yeah, like you mentioned, if you don't have the right financial foundation in place, like, this isn't financial advice, go consult your financial
Yeah.
advisor. But right, like this isn't the right game for you. That's the first kind of house in order. And then if you're doing all the right things, but then you're using a cash back or debit card and you're then paying a ton of money out of cash for travel, like this is how you reward yourself
Yeah.
and and really get, you know, those type of things. So I feel like, you shared a ton of value. If someone feels like, where you were at, lots of cards, lots of points, but trying to still figure out how to get max value, like what would you tell them?
Um, I think, yeah, I think starting out just evaluating what cards you do have and making sure that you have your, daily spend, what you or, day-to-day spend, making sure that it's going to the right cards and you're using them correctly. Um, and then thinking through like what it is that you want out of it, right? So are you hoping to like travel out of the country and be able to like afford a lie flat seat, or are you just hoping to use it for like domestic trips or largely for hotels or, flights? Like I think just kind of figuring out where you are spending a lot of money that you'd like to figure out, okay, how can I start to game this a little bit more and see more rewards and not feel like I'm paying so much out of pocket for this. Like I know for me, I wanted to, you see people going to like Europe every year and you're like, how are people affording this? Right. And it's not usually because everyone's millionaires with a ton of cash lying around. It's because they're being really strategic about how they, use their points for flights and hotels and things like that. So I think just kind of figuring out, yeah, what it is your end goal, and then making sure that you're lining up like your expenses and your spend with the right cards.
Yeah, no, very, very well said. Just keep it simple, get a game plan in place, just build out a strategy. I think that's the people try to run before they walk. And I think if you
Yeah.
get the right strategy in place, that's gonna, right, and just take those baby steps. And if you travel for work too, like just signing up for free loyalty accounts with
Yeah.
the airlines you fly or the hotels, right? Just thinking through that, like that's where I learned most of this when I started was traveling out for work and getting
Hmm.
that. And then when I had free nights in Germany for Oktoberfest and in Berlin from my travels, like that's when I'm like, oh, let's go. Like this, right? Like this will cover that. And that's just kind of when it started to really springboard and then leveraging that with the right credit cards. Like that's when, like Lauren said, you could be making a great, just everyday salary, and you could go travel. And that's, exactly the way to do it. So really appreciate you coming on, Lauren.
Yeah.
This was great. If you made it to the end, we appreciate you listening in. Hopefully this is valuable. And we will see you next week. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Awesome. Thanks, Ross. Thanks, everyone.
Really appreciate you tuning in today. Before you go, again, if you're new here, grab my free 5 step roadmap to your next free 5-star luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there in the show notes. The main takeaway from today is you don't need more time or money to travel better. You just need a simple plan and the right strategy in place. My final thought is travel is supposed to feel exciting, not overwhelming. Take one thing you learned today, apply it this week, and your next trip gets easier starting now. We'll see you next episode. Really appreciate you tuning in.